So what are you going to hear about today? So as I mentioned, today is our first IATI Info Session. We're really excited to offer these opportunities for people that want to know a little bit more about IATI, what we do as an initiative, a little bit more about IATI data, how you can access it, and then a lot of opportunities to get involved. So as we said, it's our first one. We're really excited to hear from you, what's useful and how we can tailor and shape these events as we go along. But today we're really going to focus on kind of what the basics of IATI, so you can get a better overall understanding of what the initiative is, what tools and data we have available, and then how you might be able to engage with us in the future. So throughout the session, please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat box or raise your hand. And at the end of our presentation, we'll definitely have some time for Q&A and to get to any of those questions that you have left throughout the presentation. So again, feel free to raise your virtual hand or put anything into the chat box, and we'll tackle that at the end. And we're just going to start with a couple of polls here. It's kind of a fun way just to understand who's in the room. So we can go ahead and launch this first poll, and we just want to know, what constituency are you representing? So that should be popped up on your screen there. Are you from a civil society or a non-governmental organization? Are you from a partner country government, so a developing country government? Are you from the private sector? Are you from a provider of development cooperation, whether that's a bilateral or multilateral organization, or do you consider yourself something other? So we'll just let people answer here. It looks like about half of people have participated. Give it another 5 seconds or so. We close it down. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, we've got about 75%, so I think we can close it. So let's go ahead and share the results. Hopefully everyone can see the results on their screen. So it looks like a really good chunk of people from civil society, a good chunk of people from providers of development cooperation, and then a sprinkling of private sector, partner country governments, and others. So really good to know who's here. Welcome to all of you. And I think we'll go on to the next poll. So we just have 2 or 3 of these for you guys this morning for us here in New York. So I think we can go to the next slide. Great. So just wanting to know a little bit about what you would consider your level of IATI knowledge. So do you think you're average, you kind of know what's going on? Are you completely new and you really, you're starting from zero, which is totally okay? Or do you consider yourself kind of an expert in IATI? Or maybe you're not sure. That's also an option. I think we have about 70 participated. You guys are on it this morning. All right, maybe we'll close it now. We have 80% participating. Great, so I think we can share the results. And it looks like there's a lot of new people. So 25% of you almost are saying you're completely new to IATI. And then, a good amount too, 65%, about an average knowledge about the basics. No experts in the room, it seems like. And then some people are not sure, but probably just here to learn, I'm sure. Okay, so I think we'll go on now to the introduction. That was really good, I think, to kind of understand all of us that are in the room. There's 50 people here today. So really pleased, again, to have all of you in the room. And I think we will just jump right in. So as I said, we're going to give a short presentation today, and then we will go ahead and open for questions. Just a little bit starting from the basics. I know some people are, like we just saw, kind of average level of knowledge, but it's also good to remind ourselves kind of where IATI comes from and kind of how it's organized. So IATI is a global initiative, and really what we try to do is, work to improve the transparency of development and humanitarian resources to address poverty and crises. So IATI's been around now for quite some time. It was launched at 2008 after the 3rd high-level forum on aid effectiveness in Accra. So myself and other colleagues on the call today are members of the IATI Secretariat. So we'll talk a little bit later about kind of some of the nuts and bolts of how IATI is run, but just to say that the Secretariat is really here to provide support to all of you members of the IATI community. And we really are kind of the day-to-day face of IATI under the strategic guidance of the governing board and the members of IATI. So we have a Secretariat that's made up of 3 organizations: UNDP, where I sit, our colleagues at UNOPS, which is the UN Office for Project Services, and then colleagues from development initiatives in Bristol in the UK. So we work together really to handle the day-to-day functioning of IATI. But really, IATI is funded and governed by its members, and members come from governments, development and humanitarian organizations, different organizations from all over the globe. We have more than 100 members. We also engage quite actively with our community of publishers. I know a lot of you are publishers in the room. So we have more than 1,400 organizations that are publishing IATI data, and they come from governments, international organizations, civil society, philanthropy. So those 1,400 publishers have published information on more than 1 million development and humanitarian projects in IATI. That was the nitty gritty. But what does IATI do? What is really the point of IATI? Why are we all here today? So as I said, really we are a data standard that we're working to get all organizations that conduct development or humanitarian activities. We're trying to get them to publish open data about their spending and projects. So again, we have more than 1,400 publishers. It's everything from large bilateral and multilateral organizations to really small, subnational local organizations, including, nonprofits, NGOs operating on the ground. So as I said, we are a data standard. So we encourage all these organizations to publish their data according to this data standard. And the standard is really a set of rules and guidance for publishing useful information on development and humanitarian data. So it's a standard way for everyone to publish data to make it easily comparable and easily usable in an open format. So once the IATI data is published, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with our publishing process, but once it's published, it's open source, it's free and open for anyone to access online. So a little bit later, we'll talk about some of the tools that IATI has that are kind of our corporate tools. But there's also the availability of anyone to use this data, whether that's in third-party platform, whether that's for their own data use and research purposes, kind of things, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But really what we're trying to do, again, is to make sure that this open data is available to make the global response to poverty and crises more effective. So really we want this data to be available to anyone that's making decisions on aid, whether that's from the kind of provider side or from the partner side, and also for accountability and coordination purposes. So we have users from civil society, journalists, researchers that also want this data to be able to kind of assess, to coordinate, to research, to do landscape analysis, these kind of things. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. So again, we talked a little bit about the fact that we have, this is actually an old slide, it looks like. So we now have more than 1,400 IATI publishers. So these come from, as I said, donor governments, multilaterals, development finance institutions, philanthropic organizations, non-governmental organizations, the private sector. All of these stakeholders publish data to IATI, right? This is what we mean when we say IATI publishers. These are the people who are giving us the data on their development and humanitarian activities, letting us know, what activities they're conducting, where, how much money they're spending, all of these kind of things, right? And it's really open for anyone that's conducting these kind of activities to publish to IATI. Of course, we have, our members, but we encourage any organization that publishes, that conducts development and humanitarian activities and spending to publish their data to IATI to make it open and publicly available. So what kind of data can you find in IATI? There's a lot of information in IATI. Very little is actually mandatory for publishers to publish. So it's a very flexible data standard. So publishers can really publish as much or as little data as they have available, but it's all in a standard format, right? So this is all according to the IATI data standard. What you can find in IATI is primarily financial information, including, what that organization has spent in the past and what they are budgeting to spend in the future. There's also additional useful information that's not mandatory, but that makes the data much more robust and much more useful to the data users. And that there's an ability to publish that also in IATI, right? So this could be things like the locations of projects, strategic documents that are associated to projects and activities, the results that have come out of those activities. And then you can classify the data, which is super useful for data users as well. So you can add, for instance, the sector you're working in, such as healthcare, primary education, these kind of things. So this information really is, what we've heard that is the most useful to data users. And, the IATI data standard has evolved over the years, but really this is kind of what we've heard from consultation with over 70 governments and 50 civil society organizations way back in 2009 when the standard was kind of thought up. This is the data that they said they needed to make strategic decisions, to improve coordination, to improve accountability, all of those things. So again, the IATI standard does change slightly over time with consultation from our community, from our members, publishers, data users. Everyone gets to kind of consult on how the standard changes over time. But really, these are the nuts and bolts of what you can find in IATI data and what you'll continue to be able to find over time. So that was kind of on the publishing side a little bit more. So let's look at kind of the journey from publishing to use, right? So if an organization wants to publish their data to IATI, how do they do that? And then how does it become available to data users? So again, a lot of you in the room, I think, are new publishers, which is great. We're really happy to welcome you to the community, and we'll talk later about some opportunities for further engagement with us and also for further support on your publishing journey. But just a little bit about the path that we go down from kind of publishing to, right? So once an organization kind of decides they want to be a publisher, they gather all their internal data about their development and humanitarian work, which all the data we just spoke about. So primarily data on their spending and their projects, right? So they will work to kind of take that data and map it against the standard and put that data into the standard format, right? And that's something that we can actually support as an IATI Secretariat, especially for new publishers, making sure that their data kind of complies with the IATI standard. So from there, they publish their data to our IATI registry, which is a tool basically for intaking the data. And it then becomes available in all of IATI's corporate tools, which we'll talk about. So these are the tools that are really owned by IATI, where people can go to find the data, assess it, analyze it, these kind of things. The primary tools we have are the Country Development Finance Data Tool, D-Portal, and DATASTORE Search. So we'll talk more in depth about those in just a second. But then the data also becomes publicly available for external use, right? So this means that a third party, so whether that's a government, whether that's an NGO, a researcher, they can pull and use the data for their own purposes, right? So we have organizations like, for instance, the U.S. government, USAID, uses IATI data in their development cooperation landscape tool. Also pulls IATI data into their Aid Explorer tool. So again, this data is open and publicly available for other purposes beyond just kind of what we're managing here at IATI. So it then becomes, open and available to data users, free of charge. Really, all you need is kind of an internet connection to access it. Okay, great. Okay, so who actually uses the IATI data? So we kind of talked a little bit about the publishing side. We talked a little bit about how we go from publishing to the data being available, but really who uses the data? There's quite a few stakeholder groups that we know are using the data. Of course, it's an open data initiative, so we don't know about every single use case, but primarily the use cases are coming from partner country governments, IATI publishers themselves, civil society organizations, and academics, basically. Those are kind of the primary use. But there's also lots of anecdotal evidence of journalists, politicians, citizens also using this data. So in terms of partner country governments, so developing country governments, a lot of them are using IATI data to supplement the national data that they have at the country level, right? So in their own national systems, they have obviously their own country level data, but IATI data provides a much broader picture of who's operating in the country, right? They don't always have a formal reporting relationship with every organization operating in their country, especially if those organizations are, say, small civil society organizations or philanthropy that is outside of the country, these kind of things, right? So it's really an important, really powerful tool to supplement the data that's available to partner country governments to be able to make, budgeting, management, planning decisions, right? And also to find out, to have a better kind of landscape overview of operating in their country, which, believe it or not, is not always known to them. And a second kind of important group is IATI publishers themselves. So like I said, a lot of publishers are actually using this data internally, whether that's to kind of inform, results-based management, to make more effective decisions on funding, to better understand where they're operating. There's also some governments, for instance, UK, the Netherlands, and Belgium, who mandate that anyone that receives funding from them would also publish to IATI. So I'm sure some of you in the room are probably in that situation as well. And then the third kind of big ticket group is civil society organizations. So Of course, civil society is really, really interested in accountability for funding flows, right? So assessing where projects have been implemented, what the results of those projects are, and also from the donor side, where money is going from national aid budgets and where that's being used, right? So there's a really big accountability angle here from the civil society side. And then I would also just mention academics as well. So a lot of analysis of international funding trends, even regional and country level. A lot of that can come from IATI data, and we see a lot of academics wanting to use this data as well. But because the data is online, obviously anyone can access it. So we also see journalists, politicians, citizens also wanting to use or at least look at this information as well. Great, so that's kind of the quick and dirty rundown of what IATI is, what we mean by publishers and data users, who all these people are. But wanted to also cover today a little bit more about accessing and using IATI data, because of course, we're really here to make this data, high quality data that's accessible, understandable, available for users to use it for all the purposes we've just spoken about. And again, just to reiterate, we have our own corporate tools, which we will speak about, but there is a plethora of ways that you can engage with IATI data. We'll talk a little bit later about our community platform, which is IATIConnect.org. But on IATI Connect, on our community platform, there's also a running list of all the platforms we know about that engage with IATI data, that use IATI data. We'll talk just about the kind of IATI run ones today. But again, there's a plethora of those, and we would encourage you to go and look at those on IATI Connect and explore these different tools that have made really good data. 3 primary tools by which we see users accessing our data, downloading our data, engaging with our data. And these are the 3 that are primarily run by IATI, where we provide you a lot of support to access, assess, and use the data. So the first tool is relatively new. It's called Country Development Finance Data, and I believe my colleagues are also pasting the links into the chat. But really, this is a tool where you can download very simple Excel spreadsheets where you're looking at data of disbursements and also expenditure by country, right? So if I'm interested in Malawi or I'm interested in Nepal, right, I can find all of the data for that specific country in a very easy Excel format, right? It's a very simple kind of access to the kinds of data that is requested most frequently by our colleagues that are working at the national level, right? So this was designed in consultation with government entities and other national level entities to say, what is the kind of data you actually need when you're making these kind of like budgeting, allocation, coordination decisions, right? So this is in response to those needs. And the really cool thing about this is that you can engage with this in pivot tables. There's lots of different ways to sort it. We also provide a lot of training on using this tool, but this is a very clean, curated, simple way to assess the data for kind of landscape analysis specific to a given country, right? And I should say this is an interim tool. We are going to be updating some of our tools that I'll talk about a little bit later. And that's a big project we're working on over this year and next year, basically to update our key data portals and to kind of combine everything into one place. So this is an interim tool, but the functionality won't go away. This is really important functionality that we see for national local stakeholders to be able to have a good understanding of what's happening within the country, and also to provide landscape analysis and these kind of things. And this is just the second thing I want to note about CDFD is obviously there's just the data. You can have the raw data from CDFD in an Excel format where you can kind of play around with it in pivot tables. But we also have this Excel dashboard that we've developed as well. So really what this is you download the data, you drop it into the Excel dashboard, and it gives you landscape analysis with a lot of different views. Right. So basically what you're looking at right now is on the screen is just one of the many views that you can see using this Excel dashboard tool. And it's giving you the top reporting organization by spending for a specific country. I think it's Sri Lanka. Top sectors for spending, number of activities and reporting organizations for across different years, right? So this is obviously very useful information for people that are trying to assess who their partners are at the country level, what they're spending money on, who's actually, engaging, in this case, in Sri Lanka, right? So this is just one of the views that you can see using CDFD and using our Excel dashboard. And again, we'll provide some more information at the end of the presentation on like how you can get more training on these things, where you can access guidance documents, all of that kind of stuff. Newly launched tool, DATASTORE Search, which I think they're also going to be pasting into the chat box. So this is a relatively recently launched within the last month or two. And this is a bit more of a kind of expert level, I would say, tool, right? So you have to have a more advanced understanding of the IATI data standard to use this tool, but there's definitely an audience for this, of course. But you're accessing really more the raw data that is published to IATI. This has not really been kind of curated or cleaned in any way. So it really does require a better understanding of the standard and some kind of technical knowledge on how to process data. But what you can do here is obviously really, really robust free text searches. You can select data across a combination of elements and attributes in the IATI standard. You can do kind of some advanced filtering and build really complex queries to query the data. And then you can download all that data in CSV, JSON, or XML format. So this is, again, for a slightly more technical user who understands the IATI standard and who also has some kind of data processing skills as well, but obviously very important segment of our population as well right here. So just wanted to talk a little bit about dPortal, which is another tool that we have that is going through the process of being updated through the course of 2022. And I believe my colleagues also popped that in the box there. So this is the third tool that's actually managed by IATI. It's an online kind of data visualization tool, and it allows you to search across all of the development and humanitarian activities developed. But really, this is best for looking to do kind of a deep dive into a specific activity. So if you want to look at an activity that was conducted, you want to look at the partners, the financial data, the results, whatever specific to that that activity, that's really kind of the best use of dPortal. So as you can see on the screen, there's lots of filters. You can filter by publisher, by country, by sector, by activity status, or by policy marker. So that's, whether you want to look at disability or gender equality or these kind of things. So dPortal is a really good tool for that. Again, really deep diving into an activity, kind of looking at all the breadth of the information on that activity, from finances to policy to results, depending on what was published, obviously. So those are our kind of three key tools. And again, I think at the end of the presentation, we'll give you more information on where you could find some of those like guidance documents or ways to get kind of more training and understanding on that. Yeah, so again, just to say, like, those are our data access tools, but really, again, how are people using this data? So of course, a lot of people are using IATI data to, again, inform the planning and coordination of services, right? So people, from either governments or civil society organizations that are planning and implementing services can use this data that's available to kind of better plan for the future, right? So again, that includes like national governments, whether they're doing their budgeting processes, their planning processes. Civil society might want to be looking at who else is operating in country to coordinate with them. These kind of purposes, right? We also see a lot of use of the data to guide investment decisions, right? So there's a lot of information here on what money is being spent and where it's being spent, right? So that can really help from the kind of donor level. That can help them understand, where they want to invest, where there are funding gaps, where there might be duplications, these kind of questions, right? And then again, there's a big kind of accountability component to IATI data. So a lot of stakeholders are using it to monitor the delivery and spending of projects. So obviously, seeing that things are being delivered as originally planned, monitoring the spending of money, and again, this accountability angle. And then lastly, we really see a lot of use around this kind of understanding and learning angle, right? So the data has been used many times to kind of assess international, regional, country level trends, right? So this kind of landscape analysis piece of what's going on. For instance, when COVID-19 happened, there was a lot of analysis around our COVID-19 data about what kind of funding is being allocated to COVID-19, right? So a lot of this kind of like academic landscape level analysis. And also, people are using this data to assess the impacts and to better understand how they can make their development cooperation more effective, right? There's this kind of understanding and learning angle as well. Officially come to the section where we give you more information on where you can get further support and how you can engage further. So again, Publishing support is sort of separate, so we can definitely talk a little bit more about where you can get publishing support. My colleague Andy from the publishing team is on the line also, but we're going to talk a little bit more about where you can get support to understanding and accessing the data. So as I said, we do have a digital community platform. It's called IATI Connect. And so I think our colleagues will paste the link into the chat as well. But this is a really good way to engage with anyone in the IATI community, whether these are data users, publishers, just transparency advocates, kind of like everyone's on Connect. So you can use that to share any queries that you have about data use, to find more support and guidance documents. But we do have a specific place called the Data Use Query Corner, which I think we've just posted the link to. But this is a way for people to kind of say, I want to do X with the data, but I don't really know how to do it, right? So us as a secretariat or your other data users can help you, figure out how to accomplish your goals with IATI data. So that's a really good resource. Would definitely encourage you to just check it out and read through some queries, because there's a lot of really good information there. And that's housed actually within our data use community. So we have a few communities on Connect. There is one actually for publishers. There's one for kind of the technical community that's really interested in working on our technical tools. And there's also a data use community as well. So that data use community is bigger than just queries. Really, it's everything related to data use, and it's government counterparts, civil society, publishers themselves. Everyone can engage, and it's open, it's free to use. So definitely would encourage you to check out IATI Connect and engage with us there. You'll also find more information there on our data use drop-ins. So these are something that we host basically every month. And it's an hour that's basically blocked off where the Secretariat is available for anyone that has questions about data use, or even just wants to come and talk to other data users, right? So it's a webinar Zoom format. And sometimes we also do try to go through these data use queries that have been posted on our community platform to kind of go through them and do some peer learning and sharing around these queries. And then also, us at the Secretariat, we're always here available to help you, of course. You can contact us directly at support@iatistandard.org. That is relevant whether you are a data user or a publisher as well. So our team of kind of Secretariat experts is there to help you with any questions you might have about the data use side, or even really about the publishing side as well. Great. So I think we'll move on to our final section of the presentation, which is just about how you can get involved if you're not already involved. We've got lots of ways for you to do that. So just to say, just to provide a quick overview before we kind of talk about the tangible ways to get involved, how we're set up as a community, right? So what you can see on your screen is that we, the Secretariat, here in the kind of lower right corner, which includes our technical team, that works on all of our technical tools and answers queries and all of this. We support a governing board that is made up of members, right? So the governing board is elected by members, and that's kind of the official governance mechanism of IATI that deals with like questions around how are we changing the standard, how are we governing ourselves, how much does it cost to be a member, what's our strategic plan, these kind of questions, right? So really governance things. And we're always open. If you're interested in talking about membership, you can contact us directly, and we're happy to have a one-to-one conversation with you. But that's kind of the governance side of things, right? But equally important is the IATI community, right? So this is, our community of data users, publishers, transparency advocates. So, everyone in this room is a member of the IATI community if they want to be one. And there's lots of ways that we as a IATI community engage with each other and try to keep in touch between kind of these webinars and more official meetings and things. So yeah, as I said, we have a really vibrant community of publishers and users and development practitioners, advocates, open data experts, technical specialists. So kind of everyone is welcome in the IATI community. And the best way to kind of dip your toe into engaging with us is, again, to sign up for IATI Connect. So I think the link is in the chat. But really here is where you can see kind of everything that's going on with IATI. What are the upcoming events? What are people talking about? Pose questions to other members of the community, chat with them. We have kind of almost like there's like almost like a Facebook vibe to it where, you can tag other users, you can post comments, you can like things, you can post content. So there's lots of ways to engage. And really, we want people to join, to share their expertise and kind of exchange with others about these transparency and open data issues that you care about. And really, there's a really robust network here. I think we have almost 1,500 practitioners here, if I'm not wrong. So, we've only had this platform for a year, and there's been really a lot of encouraging uptake of it. So this is the best place to find out also what's coming up with IATI in terms of like what kind of events that we're holding, like this event, for instance, and to contribute to any consultations we're having with the community. So we have a lot of consultations around different work that's ongoing by the Secretariat or by the mandated by the governing board or the members, and we want inputs from the community, right? So it's really important to us to hear from you guys who are the publishers, the data users, the advocates for this work. So this is where you can find all of our consultations as well. And you can access here also, training tools, post questions, all of that. So again, really would encourage you to sign up to kind of keep up to date with us. When you sign up, you'll also get this kind of monthly digest. You can see it here on the screen. It's called our next monthly snapshot. That's like a really good way, even if you just sign up and don't engage with the platform, you will receive like a monthly digest of everything that's going on. So that's a really clean and easy way to also engage with us. So just how to get support, right? So we have like a wealth of different types of stakeholders on this call, and with lots of different kinds of questions, I'm sure, which we unfortunately won't get to tackle every single one today. So on our website, which I think our colleagues are going to post in the chat, but IATIstandard.org, and also on IATI Connect, we have all of the guidance you'll need for publishing and data use. But of course, you still have questions after that. You can contact us at the IATI Help Desk. And again, that's what I mentioned in terms of like if you have data use queries, if you have publishing queries, anything you want to ask us, we're there at the help desk, which is support at IATIstandard.org, to be able to respond to you. And then again, really would encourage you to sign up to IATI Connect, because that's just a way to kind of learn from your peers, ask questions of other people in the community as well. So yeah, stay connected with us. Of course, we mentioned we have IATI Connect, which has its own kind of community newsletter. We also have an IATI more formal newsletter that kind of also deals with like the governance aspects of things. So you can sign up for that at IATIstandard.org. We're pretty active on Twitter, so we love when people tweet at us or tag us. So we're at IATI_8 or #IATI. And then again, stay up to date on all the future events. So, we want to hear from you further in the session, just a little bit about, what you liked or didn't like about this session, or how we could tailor it further. But this is where you'll also see all the other events we have coming up. And just wanted to flag a few, if we go to the next slide, just a few really important upcoming engagement opportunities that you might want to consider. So this first one is our third virtual community exchange. So basically, like during the time of COVID, we had to find new ways of engaging with the community if we weren't able to face-to-face. And we're continuing as face-to-face, opens up a little bit more. We're still continuing to have these virtual events because we found them really, really useful. So this is an opportunity for anyone in the IATI community, no matter what their relationship to IATI, whether they're a data user or a publisher, to come together and exchange. And so this upcoming virtual community exchange will focus a lot more on presentations from the IATI community itself. So in the past, it's kind of been a balance of us as a secretariat updating people on what we're doing and consulting with people, and community presentations. But this time, we really want to hear from you, members of the community, about questions you have about, how you're using the IATI data, how you're publishing data, different facets of open data and transparency you might be interested in hosting an event about. So that virtual community exchange will take place on the 28th of June. It'll be a few hours long and completely virtual, completely free. And so we definitely would encourage you all to register for that. I think my colleagues will put the link in the chat. And we're also accepting proposals for sessions. So, we have these 45-minute-ish session blocks where you can propose a session that you'd like to have at the virtual community exchange to engage with others in the IATI community, whether that's you want to talk to the other data users, publishers, you want to present your work, these kind of things. So there's more information on IATI Connect about some of the parameters for that, but definitely would really encourage people to submit session proposals if there's something you're interested in there. We also have this one other engagement opportunity we wanted to flag to you, and this is a survey that's actually open for another few days. It's open until the 9th of May, and it's really important for IATI to be able to kind of track its progress and understand how we're doing. So this is an annual survey that we undertake that kind of feeds data back to us about how we're doing as an open data initiative, because we don't always know who's doing what since the data is completely open. So our annual survey really feeds into kind of the Secretariat's understanding of where we need to put more focus and what we need to work on. It feeds into the governing board kind of giving us guidance on, we need to do better in this area, or we're excelling in this area, these kind of things. So there's 2 surveys. One is for members and publishers. So if you are a member or you're a publisher, there's a link for you specifically there. And then there's another survey that's open for just data users. So anyone who's used IATI data can access the survey. So we'd really encourage you to take it. Probably takes about 20 minutes to take. And we're happy to give additional guidance on this. If there's any questions, you can always come to us and ask. And so this is how to contact us. Obviously, there's many different things you might be interested in hearing from us about. So if it's general inquiries about membership or governance, you can always write to info@iatistandard.org. If it's support on publishing data or using data or any other technical queries, you can email us at support@iatistandard.org, media inquiries at media@iatistandard.org. And then if there's any very specific technical inquiries that you have about support for developers, then you can email us at code@iatistandard.org. So that's kind of the end of the formal presentation. We did want to hear some feedback from everyone about, how you liked this session, or things we could change at a later date for future sessions. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat box. Sonder, I'm going to ask my colleague Sonder to come in. He's been monitoring the chat box for us during this call. So is there anything that you see in the chat box that we might want to bring up as an unanswered question at this point?
I think, Anna, we have one question by BMZ Gottman, but I think we will have to come back to that in a little bit. But other than that, I think all the questions are answered so far. Feel free to drop any of the other questions you might have still in the chat box, or use a raised hand to come in.
Okay. All right. Well, I think maybe we can keep stewing on that for a little bit. We do have 15 minutes left in the session. So we can come back if there's any additional questions for us. But we did want to see, maybe Andre, you can go to the next slide. It sounds like there's someone that's unmuted. So if you guys could just check that you're muted, that would be great. But yeah, I think this is also something we wanted to hear from you all about. If you have any comments about, if this session was helpful, not helpful, did we miss anything important that you were expecting? Is there kind of things that you would like to see covered in future info sessions, or even additional sessions on any of these topics? We're always happy.
Hello?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Just ask the question in the chat. Is there a specific license on the data use, something like Creative Commons, or just one of the data use licenses? Thank you.
Yes, it's open data, so free for anyone to use without a license, right? So when you publish, it becomes completely open, license free. So yeah, no specific limitations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But again, if you have more specific questions to your circumstances, again, always just send us a message at support@iatistandard.org, and we're really happy to kind of explore more with you if you have really specific questions. Okay, apparently we had a really, let's see, a lot of information is already common knowledge for us, but we did learn a few bits. Thanks for the ongoing chat. Great, perfect. Yeah, and I think that's useful to know, because of course we have different levels of knowledge within IATI. There's some people who are completely new and are learning a lot of this stuff for the first time. But it seems like what we had today, of course, this was our first session, so it seemed like the level of knowledge was a little bit higher than we might have expected. So maybe that's good for us to take away for future sessions as well. Maybe sessions for complete newbies versus sessions for people who have a little bit more more knowledge. That's definitely something for us to consider as well. Very helpful to a newbie, a lot to digest. Great presentation. Next time, sharing a more detailed agenda in advance may help us to decide whether to attend or who should attend. Okay, great. Yeah, super helpful. Any final questions or comments that anyone wants to say for today? Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone so much for attending. We really appreciate you. So again, contact us at info@IATI Standard for any like really general questions, or support@IATIstandard.org to get into kind of some of the more data use and data publishing questions, and we're always happy to support. Sign up to IATI Connect at IATIconnect.org, and we will definitely continue the conversations there. And I think we will close out here for today, and hopefully everyone can grab a tea or a coffee between their next meeting. And thank you so much for attending and spending the hour with us. And we will be sending, yep, it looks like the colleague Sarah in the chat, we will be receiving, forwarding the PowerPoint presentation to anyone that registered. And so look out for that, and please do feel free to contact us for any further questions. So thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you on IATI Connect or at a future event.